and sex. There's like a bajillion ways of putting these two things together, and I'm going to teach you exactly how to do it. Hi, I'm sex and relationship coach Caitlin V, and this is food and sex. That was a bigger commitment than I thought it was going to be. You know in movies when there's a guy and a girl and they're having like a sexy scene and maybe she's got a blindfold on and he takes a strawberry and he rubs it around her lips before putting it into her mouth, like giving her a taste, and then they make out and the strawberry's everywhere and it's hot. Well, my husband has a habit of doing the same thing to me, only with like chicken and avocado or peanut butter, and it's not that sexy, but it's freaking hysterical, and that's our sense of humor. But that's just one example of many of ways that food can be incorporated into the bedroom. I think food and sex have probably gone together since the existence of food and the existence of sex, which is always. And just like everything else that can be sexualized, there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and there's things that you need to keep in mind to do it safely. So please watch to the end of this video, because I'm going to give you the safety tips that you need to make sure that nobody has any unpleasant side effects or gets sick from combining food with sex. But first of all, what are some of the things that you've got to know? What are some of the high-level ways that food and sex can be combined? Well, number one, there's feeding each other. Number two, there's licking food off of each other. Number three, there's inserting food into one another. Number four, there's getting messy with food, more popular in the kink and fetish community, where there's videos of women like messing up birthday cakes and rubbing them all over each other and like feeding them to each other. That might be a little bit too messy for you, and if it's not, go for it, my friends. And food is a great way of doing temperature play, because food can be in different temperatures. It can be warm, it can be frozen, and there's even more that we'll get to in just a minute. One of my favorite things about incorporating food into your bedroom is that it's fun, it's creative, it's different. Like food and sex are both really decadent, really enjoyable activities, and they pull on our pleasure centers, right? So food, eating food, delicious food, is a pleasurable activity, just the same way that being sexual with a partner is a pleasurable activity. And if you're like me and you're a highly sensual type and your senses get really involved when it comes to being sexual and having sex, then this is a great way to appease those senses and bring them in. Food can be part of a visual sensory experience. There's sound and audible things when it comes to food, whether that's crunching or licking, sucking, chewing. There's a very audible quality to eating food, especially, and sometimes even to cooking it or applying it. There's obviously the taste that's involved. There's different feelings and textures, whether you're the person that has food on them or is licking food off or just enjoying food together or whatever. There can be a lot of textural things happening. And of course, there's smell. Food often has smells, and sometimes incorporating smells, delicious smells, into the bedroom can bring pleasure up to a whole new level for everyone involved. All right, number one, you can feed each other. This can be very sexual activity. As I gave you the example of someone having a blindfold on and then eating different kinds of food, you can do a little bit of role play. You can pretend to be, say, a Grecian god, and someone can feed food to you, feed grapes right into your mouth, or you can feed your lover different slices of food. You could even make this a part of a bondage scene, tell them that they have to hold this apple in their hands and they cannot let it drop, or one apple in each hand, and they absolutely cannot let it drop under any circumstances. So they are forced to kind of like keep their hands up. Or you could do any sort of play where you are giving someone a sensory experience with food, teasing them with it, giving it to them, taking it back from them. You could get really kinky just in the area of feeding each other. Then, of course, there's eating food off of each other. So obviously there's the more famous examples of whipped cream and chocolate syrup, but I also want to recommend honey and cheese. Brie cheese or other sort of more savory things, like whatever you like, can be incorporated into bed. That could be hummus, that can be tahini. We'll put a pin in that because we're going to get back to how to do all of those foods safely, and licking food off of each other has some special things that we want to keep in mind, and I'm going to give you those in just a moment. Third, you can insert food inside of each other. things like cucumbers, carrots, zucchini, anything that's sort of like phallically shaped, even bananas can be part of a sexual game, and they can be used as sex toys. And there's some really particular ways that you can do that safely as well. And then temperature play. Things like grapes in particular can be frozen, and then they can be placed on the body. They can be dragged along the skin to create different degrees and different sensations. Temperature play can be really, really exciting. You can even put a grape on the outside of someone's labia. You can hold a frozen grape up to their clitoris or next to it or to the anus. There's all kinds of things that you can do with temperature play, and food is a great transmitter of temperature. It also tends to warm up more quickly because of the high water content. So for example, a grape will eventually come up to body temperature or room temperature, often in a quicker fashion than say something that's metal. So it can be it can be a fun way to get started with temperature play. Okay, what are some things that you have to keep in mind? Number one, sugars in and around the vagina. The vagina has a really particular and kind of delicate pH balance. It's very easy to knock it off. So no matter what you are playing with, make sure that it doesn't enter the vagina, just to be safe. Even if it doesn't have sugar in it or it's no added sugar, just keep it out of the vagina. It's just safer not to go there, because having a yeast infection or having a bacterial overgrowth or just having any sort of discomfort is going to mess up sex into the weeks into the future. And so it's really not worth messing it up. It's not worth the pain. It's not worth the discomfort. Some of those things can leave you more exposed to contracting or transmitting and sexually transmitted infection. Just keep it outside the vagina. Usually the outside, the vulva, it has a little bit more flexibility, although it also has a pH balance that we really want to protect. So being really cautious, especially when it comes to things that have sugar in them, and not inserting them inside of the vagina. That is number one, primary, most important. Number two is anything that goes into the body, whether that's the vagina or the anus. And for this, I'm thinking especially like cucumbers and other thick vegetables. First, wash them with soap and water, or one of those washes that's particularly created to help get the waxes and fertilizer off of vegetables. And then, even after you've washed them, put a condom on them. Just put a condom on them. It's so much easier than dealing with some of the crazy chemicals that might be on there. If you're gonna put it in your body, put a condom on it. It's just so much simpler. That way you don't have to worry about it. There's no stress. And nice thing about condoms is that they tend to smooth out some of the little irregularities on the surface of some of those fruits and vegetables. And so it can make it a little bit more pleasurable and a little bit less friction as they are being inserted and being played with. And then of course, the example of like peeling a banana and using it to determine the depth of your throat, how deeply you can take the banana. Like there's ways to play with food being inserted into your body without having to take your pants off. I mean, you could do that at a brunch place if you're kinky. Careful what you do in public, kids, especially if you're around children. But keep that in mind, like food can be part of flirtation. It doesn't have to just be inserted into an orifice to be sexily inserted into your body. Although I guess the mouth is an orifice. You get my picture. Also, be wary of using things that are spicy or have too much texture or too much salt in them. If you're gonna get really, really creative, just be sure that you're not doing anything or putting anything on anyone's skin that might cause an adverse reaction. Spiciness is probably the most important one. Again, going back to allergies, but also just like remember that some of the skin we're talking about here is very, very sensitive, more sensitive than you might imagine. So be careful and treat it with caution. Here's one other thing I really want you to keep in mind is that some people like me, I was like, yes, this can be really, really fun and super sexy. And some people are very sensitive to stickiness and to messes. And so if you're going to incorporate food into the bedroom, number one, talk to your partner about it first. Especially if they're a new partner, perhaps they have food allergies. Not the time to find out during sex. That's really gonna put a big damper on the night. So make sure that you're not feeding them anything that they don't like or that they are allergic to. Number two, ask them about their tolerance for stickiness. If they're like me and sticky is okay in the heat of the moment, but then immediately after we're done, I need to make sure that I have access to a shower or at least like a hot towel, because I can't deal well with stickiness for too long, at least not food stickiness. There's probably like lube stickiness I'm fine with, but like The leftovers of whipped cream or chocolate or honey, it's too much for me. Even brie cheese, like I don't want it on my body for too long. That's my particularity. If you love that, hooray, good for you. Ask your partner first, that way you can have a plan for when it is all said and done. And if they don't do well with sticky, you can make sure that there's a shower or a bath or at least a hot towel waiting by to give them and their nervous system a sense of calm after play is done. And then finally, set the scene. That could include putting a sheet or a towel down on the bed. If you're really getting into it, then you might want to be able to lay your partner down and cover them with food, whether that's sushi or chocolate cream or whipped cream or whatever. Maybe you want to draw a line between their nipples and their genitals and whipped cream. Well, if you are not cautious, and let's be real, in sex, we want to make it just easy so we don't have to focus on other things. We can just lose ourselves in pleasure. You don't want to be focused on whether or not whipped cream is getting on your sheets. So put a towel down, have towels nearby, have baby wipes nearby, have wet, hot towels nearby, whatever you've got to do so that when you're in the moment, you can just enjoy in the moment and get all the pleasure of having your taste buds, all your other senses, and your bodies stimulated by the intersection of food and sex. All right, please write in the comments what you liked best about this video and what did I forget? What other things would you recommend for people if they're going to incorporate food into their sexual play? And while you're down there, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any other awesome information on how to have the best sex ever. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.